Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
When you think of these two words, family business, you have this idyllic vision in your head, I'm sure. From looking at TV and media, the family's all working together. Maybe it's a restaurant. They're all helping each other, supporting each other. Yes, that can be the case, but also there's a lot of stress going on there. You have the family dynamics. You have situations where maybe one family member is in over their head. Maybe some more responsibilities came up and they're uncomfortable. So they feel like they would be betraying the family to ask for help. Well, you need to. You have to find the right person to ask. And that would be a coach. There's actually a coach for family businesses. He's been there. He's done that. Had a family business, helps others with that now. Inspire Coaching Group is his company. He's our professional of the year. Dave Shields is back with us. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Good morning, Steve. It's fabulous. Another sunny day in paradise down here near the Tampa area in Florida. So, yeah, it's nice. How about you?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's good in New York. It looks like we have some thunderstorms moving in. I love that area. Tampa, Clearwater. I usually try to get there maybe once a year. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but there's just a certain vibe. And I guess that you're feeling it.
I feel it, and my fiance grew up on the Mediterranean Sea, so she is at peace in the best possible way on the beach, and so we're here also because that's a wonderful, cool. And lots of wonderful beach areas here for her. So yeah.
So let's say somebody has a family business, they're involved in the family business, and they're feeling uncomfortable because things have changed. Maybe they've taken on some new roles. They're not really qualified for all of this. Maybe it's a little bit of imposter syndrome. They're kind of phoning it in. Maybe they're doing their best, but there's more going on here. And their dynamics of the family. How do they approach their family members to say, listen, I need help. I can't do this. I can't do this alone. Not that they're completely alone with the family, but they need support. How do they approach that?
Well, they have to have an open line of communication, and sometimes that's where the sticking point is for many families, where they feel uncomfortable talking to a family member, or if they have a concern about that person's role, they don't want to hurt their feelings, right? So they don't necessarily want to address that with them. That's oftentimes when they might seek me out for help, and then I help them establish a good communication line between each other in the family business in such a way where folks can feel safe to talk about what needs to be talked about, to be able to be honest, and to address concerns about even yourself, right? You talked about that person in family business who's maybe in over their head. They're in a role that they're not comfortable in. Maybe they feel like an imposter in that role. It's possible maybe even they need some training to be up to speed in the kind of role that they're in the business. But one of those family members, it's at some point in time, often will reach out to me. I've had two folks just in the last month who, when I first talked with them, they said things like, I'm a little bit embarrassed that I've needed to reach out for help. And I said, tell me a little bit about that embarrassment. And they're like, well, we're family. We should just be able to work these things out. And I chuckled and said, with my own 27 years of experience in owning family business, being in family business, that I know that we all run into obstacles, but it is hard to reach out for help.
I'm glad you said that because it's the assumption that, the covered wagon, we'll all surround them, we'll all help each other. Doesn't really work that way. And if there's anybody out there that says, my family is fantastic, we never have issues, everything is smooth, there's never any problems ever, you are not being honest. Just the way it is.
There's some of us sometimes brush things under the rug, But that lump under the rug grows over time, doesn't it? And
Sure.
and then folks start tripping over that darn thing. And so at some point, the truth is we're all human, right? We all make mistakes. We're all on the path, right? And so on that path, we all have issues or pieces that we need to work on personally, and then the relational system of the family.
So let's look at it this way. Jim is part of the family business. Jim's brother unfortunately passed away. Jim has taken on his brother's role, and he's doing his job plus his brother's job, and it's out of his wheelhouse. He's not really sure how to handle it. If he were to reach out to you and the family agreed, all right, let's talk to this coach guy, Dave. You know, he knows what he's doing. Where would you start in a situation like that? Yeah, I think I would imagine that you need to be careful to protect Jim's integrity. You know, you don't want to say, yeah, Jim, hey, by the way, Jim doesn't know what he's doing. You know, so how do you delicately deal with that?
Well, the first thing that occurs to me is that I would want to ask Jim and ask how he's attending to his grief and loss, or the loss of his brother. That piece is super important in the whole process as a whole.
Sure.
And then I would want to talk with Jim first, and then maybe bring other family members in to talk about how can we support Jim in this additional role in such a way that he can either grow into it, or he could be the Band-Aid, so to speak, on that spot in the family business that needs attention from him right now, until we can put somebody else in that position. Jim may or may not be really qualified or have the natural talent to be able to do the marketing, let's say. He may be introverted, although there are some good introvert salespeople, right?
Sure.
But maybe he's introverted. Maybe he's not really cut out to do the marketing piece, but now it's fallen to him. So how can we support him in the role, temporarily at the very least, in such a way that we can that'll help the business to be stable, and then have a plan in place, maybe a recruiting effort, or maybe there's another employee in the business who really has some potential in that area, would like to move up and into a role like that. How can we then prepare that other employee in a way that's excellent for that person's growth, and then be able to put them at some point in that position to take over?
When you're working with a family business, can you identify if some of the family members really aren't qualified for their positions? Do you do an assessment, a deep dive to see who's doing what and how they're doing it?
Yeah, I just went over assessment results this morning with a young lady, and to see where her natural talents lie. The research is pretty clear, Steve, that if we work in an area of weakness, or at the very least work in an area where we're not naturally passionate and talented, we're going to be at the very least restless, sometimes anxious, sometimes frustrated, and just overall discontent, to be working in a role like that. So it's really best for the person, and absolutely best for the business, for that person to be aligned with roles where they have some passion and interest and natural talent. So yes, I do 3 different assessments in the intake process with folks, to really begin to ferret out what some of the natural strengths are, and then take a look at what the roles are they're playing in the business, in the family business, and see if they're lined up correctly. And if not, then we begin to work on that.
So the strength assessments you're referring to, we talked about that before. Coincidentally, I took one of them a couple of months ago. What if next time we get together, in advance, I send you my results and you could dissect it? I'm transparent. I have nothing to hide, as if I was a member of a family business, right? And then you could show how that all works.
Oh, that would be beautiful and a lot of fun to do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. We'll put that on the plans for next time. So
yes,
when you're working with a family business and there's some challenge, dissension, some of the family members aren't getting together. I see this all the time in my circles and the work that I do, there's difference of opinion. Everybody has a different idea. How do you bring everybody relatively together?
Well, one of the first things I start with, Steve, is to try to get a better understanding. The new clients that I'm working with this morning, the lady that I went over the assessment results with,
Sure.
her and her mom in this business are really different kinds of people. So the first step really is to have them have a better understanding, not just of themselves, but of each other in a way that they know a little bit more, have a little bit more acceptance about how each other are, and then try to pave the path forward to be able to communicate about business issues in a way that works for both people. A communication strategy that attends to the wildly extroverted owner, the mom, and the incredibly private introverted partner in the daughter.
Very delicate job you have.
It is. It is,
Yeah.
and it's somebody mentioned that yesterday, something similar to that, and it said something about Dave. That must just be really a hard job, and it can be challenging with so many different dynamics, different personalities, different mixes. But I absolutely love it. I've loved owning my own family businesses. And the healing and the reconciliation that happens as a part of us solving some of these things that start out as, well, we have this business problem, which really turns out more to be a problem with interactions and personal dynamics.
Sure.
And then when we solve that, there's healing, which is reconciliation, which is a wonderful gift to them. And then sometimes business issues really kind of melt as a result of the family being more connected.
That's one point I want to bring up, the healing. And that's what also makes you radically different than many other coaches out there. You certainly have a niche in specializing in family business coaching, but you recognize the healing and you recognize energy and how that all comes together. Very impactful. When you're helping somebody heal, or some family members, and it could be anything. It could be traumas from the past, situations, whatever it is. What modalities do you use to get that done?
Well, I always start where the clients are, and oftentimes what they present on the front end is some kind of business issue. You know, a father-son business I talked with last week. The dad was talking about that the son wants to update their logo, wants to update the colors they use in the business, and build another part in the showroom. So we start with what's presented, right? Because that shows respect. I just want to respect where folks are. But then it always boils down to the dad has promised the business to his son. He's 64 now and is holding on tightly to a business that his son has really has lots of what I call sweat equity in the business, right? Time he's put in, investment that he's made, and he really ready to take over. And so there's that dynamic between father and son. That's kind of almost kind of a competition, or not a competition, but a struggle between the next person kind of moving up, the generational person moving up and taking over that business. So getting back to your question, what I use is just lots of psych theory, especially personal development and personality and temperament. Many of the models, I like the Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. And then we learn from those dynamics who those folks are from a core standpoint, and then be able to move from there. But I've been in the field of mental health prior to doing this coaching stuff for 36 years. And I love theory. I love to know how people tick. I love to understand and then really support people to be authentically themselves.
So you open the door to the father-son situation. I'm going to toss that back to you. And let's say you have those dynamics. Father started the business. Son has been part of it for quite some time. As you said, sweat equity in the business. Father is just, he's moving along, but he's kind of taking his foot off the gas. And but he hasn't given up control. He's, he's not that old, but he's at the point where he's been doing it for decades, long time. but he hasn't. He's not ready to hand it over to the son thus far. How would you handle that situation?
Well, I have. I used to train psychotherapists and graduate students, and so they would often come to me with what I call a hunch. And what I would say to them is first gather more
Hmm.
information to really verify whether your hunch is accurate or not. So I have a hunch about the dad. The dad's whole life has been his identity, even after
Yeah.
divorce, has been his work.
Yep.
And that's really defined who he is. I don't think, well, here's my hunch. I don't think dad has yet determined what the next chapter of his life is going to be. And so he's holding on tightly to what is, while there's a kind of a draw or a call for him to begin to open up to what the future might hold for him outside of work and business. So that's my
Hmm.
hunch.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that it's scary. What do I do now?
Absolutely, absolutely,
And I've got
absolutely.
my son, my flesh and blood, nipping at my
Yes,
heels over here. And again, I
yes.
would understand that. Um, Boy, this almost turns into like individual therapy for the father.
Don't say that. Yeah, don't say that. Yeah, yeah. I never start there, right? And I don't call it therapy because now I am doing family business coaching. It's a coaching service now, but it's a lot like therapy, isn't it? The way that I described it and the way that you interpreted it, Steve, was that sounds like healing and therapy and personal growth and transformation. Absolutely, and coaching can be that too.
Yes, but it's you make it intentional where
Mm,
that's part of it. And I agree, it needs to be part of it. You can have somebody who's a coach that's great with the logistics and coming up with ideas and kind of moving the pieces on the board, so to speak. But when you start thinking what's going on here for that client, like the father in this situation, maybe you can make it clear for him that, well, you know what, you could pivot over to this, or you could do that, or restructure his responsibility where he's not as hands on, but he feels like he's got a little grip on it, but for the time
yes,
until he gets
yes,
bored, and actually says,
yes.
I'm done. I'm moving out. Because I got to believe in that situation, the next time something comes along, that, opportunity, son, good luck with that. I'm here if you need me, at that point.
Yeah, even a girlfriend, right? If a girlfriend came along for this guy, may be helpful for him to
Yeah.
be able to do that. But dad needs. But I want to help him discover that for himself first, and then I
Yeah.
want it to be
Hmm.
a gradual process of detaching and moving away from the work world solely, so that he can begin to define a life for himself outside of that. But what I bring, you're right. What I bring to the table is super unique in the field. You can get a business coach, right? Somebody that's trained and does some business coaching, gives some good advice. It's harder than to find somebody who's owned a family business, who's now in the business of coaching family businesses. Then the third piece is the 36 years of mental health experience. So I bring
Yes.
a deep understanding and acknowledgement of personality and temperament and healing and dynamics within families that own businesses. So that's I don't know anybody else in the field of business coaching or family business coaching that has the angle that I bring.
Mm. Having studied all of this for the last number of years and doing podcasts with quite a few coaches, uh, that's the game changer.
Mm.
Your background, that is a specialty that you bring. That's your secret weapon. That's what it is.
Oh.
With all those years of practice in the mental health arena, like you've already identified this hypothetical father situation that his identity is his job. You take that away, he's got nothing. So he's holding on, but
Yes.
not really being an
Yeah.
effective business leader. Do you view it, that situation, the father, the son, does it turn into almost like, is it a partnership?
Between me and them?
No, between that father and son, that dynamic right
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Would you view that as it's a partnership, whether you want to admit it or not? It really is.
It is a partnership, and one of the things I start when I get to know folks, I begin immediately to hope, wish, and dream for them. And this father and son had a brilliant, fantastic relationship up until about a decade ago, and it was fun and lively and light. And about business at the same time as they built this business, and they lost that about a decade ago, and due to some incident, there was a loss. You gave an example of somebody losing a brother earlier on the show. This dad lost his dad during that time, and that's when he really started to shift and get more serious. Started to solely focus on business and nothing for personal and those kinds of things. So I begin to dream for these guys. And so I want to help reconcile their relationship so that they can have maybe what they had before and even better.
So cool. That's wonderful the way you said that. And I have that visual, and I saw that father and son 10 years ago. Like, you ever see a married couple and they're like, well, they're the power couple. They come, they walk in and everybody, I got that visual of that father and son, like dynamic duo, but things changed. And especially, when somebody doesn't take care of themselves and practice self-care, they get kind of lost. And great stuff today. This is so real what we're talking about. And I believe every family business needs coaching. Everybody needs coaching, but even more so family businesses because of those dynamics, and it's your livelihood. It's, you're earning a living and legacy and all of that. Dave,
yes.
How do we connect with you? How do we find you if somebody wants to start the conversation?
I'll make it really easy. There's several ways to really get in touch. You can give us a call on our business line. It's 317-721-7478. You can visit our website at inspire-coaching.us, or you could just drop me an email at dave@inspire-coaching.us, and we can begin the conversation.
Inspire is such a great word, and you are an inspiration for these businesses, and appreciate you being here today.
I appreciate you saying that, Steve. You have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.